fans, we are back live on the Cheap Heat Productions podcast network with a very special interview. A man who is a former world heavyweight champion, both in singles and, of course, amazing tag team success. He is perhaps best known for his work in the original Ring of Honor and TNA. I would be talking about the man known as the American Wolf or the Lone Wolf, Mr. Davey Richards. Davey, welcome to the show tonight.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I guess it helps the fans to get a baseline of how you became involved in pro wrestling. Was there a moment in time that you decided that you wanted to pursue that as a full-time career, or was that something that was always on your mind?
I have been an amateur wrestler since I was 10, which was a long time ago. And and this is kind of prior to UFC / training into the very early days of UFC. And, as an amateur wrestler, and I went to college on a wrestling scholarship and did pretty well. But there's no, at least then, there was no money avenues outside of, sponsorship through the Olympics and stuff. So when I was in college, my buddy asked me about professional wrestling, and I thought he was talking about like this stuff like that was on TV at the time. And I was like, oh, no, I never really thought about doing that. And he's like, no, this is like wrestling in Japan. And I'm like, it's real. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then he showed me Pancrase. So I thought I was like, oh man, this is so awesome, man. So I went and I went on my old, I almost said laptop, but my old dial-up computer, or dial-up internet, the old modem thing where, your grandma couldn't be on the phone because you had to use the modem. and went and found WWA 4 down in Atlanta, Georgia, and I packed up my bags and just drove. I mean, this was like pre-Google Maps, just kind of winged it and went to Atlanta, lived in my car for a while, and found out very quickly it was the other kind of professional wrestling. But I had a really good coach who was very sports-minded and treated it as a sport, so I was very drawn to it. And it really just took off. I mean, within a year, I was in the Inoki Dojo in Los Angeles. I was wrestling for like bigger promotion like Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. I won the Super 8. I went to Ring of Honor. Then before I knew it, 3 years in, I'm wrestling, in Japan for Pro Wrestling Noah. And it all happened really, really fast. And so I kind of became a fan of, I would say, traditional professional wrestling as I was doing traditional professional wrestling.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. I wanted to ask you about a portion of your training because I know you had a couple of multifaceted approaches to pro wrestling training, but yeah. I noted that you had a portion under Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff.
Yeah.
And just from an old school perspective, I find it fascinating to ascertain what he might have provided to you, not the in-ring stuff, but in terms of the psychology and that yeah. part of the business that seems to be going extinct, if not extinct.
Yeah, I was told by several, people who I really respect, be it Paul Orndorff, Ricky Morton, Ric Flair, Jim Cornette, J.J. Dillon. They're like, kid, you were born 10 years too late. Back in the territory days, you'd been main eventing. So because those guys, that's not to speak on my skill. I'll leave that to the fans to decide. But it was more so that it was treated like a sport, and that's the way I looked at it. It was competition every night, and that's a lot how the old Ring of Honor locker room was. And so Paul really instilled that in me from the start was, you are and are to conduct yourself as a professional athlete. And so I really, that really resonated with me. Had it been, more of a showmanship character, gimmicky thing, I don't think I would have stuck with it. But because Paul had that mentality and that outlook and that and those demands, more accurately, it really resonated with me and invigorated me. So he's largely responsible for me, sticking around so long.
Mm-hmm. First of many fan questions. John is asking live here, memories of wrestling in Barcelona in 2008 versus Tommy and he's asking, how was Spain?
So I've often told friends, family, and my girlfriend, I've been very lucky to see the world, and I went to Paris. I saw the Eiffel Tower. It was kind of cool. Okay. And, I saw, the Grand Canyon. Yeah, that's cool. And, all the other things, Mount Fuji, Japan. It's cool. And then I went to Barcelona and saw La Sagrada Familia. And it's the most beautiful thing, besides seeing my son born, that I've ever seen in my entire life. I can't even put into context how beautiful that is. And Barcelona was absolutely gorgeous and beautiful, and the fans there were awesome. And wrestling Tommy is always a treat. So it was a win, 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 win.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned about ROH, and of course, you were a former world champion there and multi-time tag champion. And really, a lot of historians now are looking back at and noting how the original ROH was so important to a lot of the product that we see today over the past, say 10 years and in WWE, and really for revolutionizing the business and moving it to the next level.
Yeah.
This may be a difficult question, but did you or could you have a most memorable moment from your tenure? I'm sure there were a few, and why would that stand out if you can boil it down?
I would say I won't say my world title win because I got knocked out and so I don't remember much of it. And me and Eddie always hated wrestling each other because we just knew we were going to beat the hell out of each other. And Eddie's a phenomenal wrestler. Don't get me wrong. And he'll say the same thing. We just was like, oh God, we got to do this again. But I would say probably my career defining moments there were my match. I can't remember which one, but it was in Houston, Texas, Super Card of Honor when I wrestled Kenta, because that's when, Ring of Honor had so many great champions, Samoa Joe, Bryan Danielson, so on and so forth. But like ultimately that company's success was built on the shoulders of Gabe Sapolsky. I mean, he was the mastermind. He was, he's a very polarizing figure, but without his vision, it was never the same. So when he first left, Adam Pearce was brought in, and all respect to Adam Pearce, great guy, very smart guy, but his style was just different, not better or worse, just different. And it just wasn't Ring of Honor. And there were some people there at the time that were really looking to make Ring of Honor very more TV friendly, more, I don't know, outdated in my opinion. I won't say Adam Pearce is one of those people, but and I was not having none of it. That's not the Ring of Honor I got into. And so I think me and Kenta were supposed to go like 10 minutes for a GHC junior heavyweight title match. And we went like 20 and we just tore the house down, like stole the show. And I got on the mic afterwards. I told Todd Sinclair, you can kind of see me talking to him. I said, give me the mic. I'm about to get in trouble. And he goes, oh, boy. And I said, that's what Ring of Honor is supposed to be. And so that was me, I think, stepping into the hierarchy. I was there. I was then considered a main eventer. So that was a really career defining moment for me because I was, kind of standing on the top of the mountain, pounding my chest and saying, this is what I believe in. And I had the courage to do that then. And I would say me and Eddie Edwards' first tag team title win, because it was like, that was something I got to give credit to Gabe Sapolsky. Actually, I got to give credit to Gabe Sapolsky and Adam Pearce, actually, because with Adam Pearce, it's very possible the American Wolves would have never existed because Gabe wanted to start me on a road to win the world title. After Danielson had lost it. And I was like, man, I really want to tag with this guy, Eddie Edwards. and he was kind of on the fence about it. I'm not going to say he said no, but I'm not going to say he said yes. And then Gabe had whatever falling out, and he left. And then Adam came in, and he gave the green light, and he really gave us a shot, and we ran with it. But credit where credit's due. Adam was very instrumental in us, and it was it was kind of like our baby. We created it, you know what I mean? So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I wanted to get your thoughts on why that was such a successful pairing, why that chemistry was so bang on, and you see a lot of teams, especially nowadays, that are thrown together, and you can really tell the difference when you've got an actual bona fide throwback style of tag team. What was it about you guys that clicked, so to speak?
It was very organic. It was I don't think either one of us had ever, envisioned our pro wrestling career being part of a successful tag team. At least I know I hadn't. And if Eddie did, he never brought it up to me. But I just, when I first saw Eddie, I know I'm about to blow some minds here. I'm about to, everyone better be sitting down, but I have at times been, compared to the Dynamite Kid. So I know, right? And it's the short bald headed guy thing. But and when I first met Eddie Edwards, believe it or not, he used to have dreadlocks, or not dreadlocks, braids, pardon me. And he, Eddie's when you see him at first, you're like, damn, he's a big dude. And I was like, man, and he wrestled just like Davey Boy Smith, and I mean that as a compliment. And I was like, man. And we got to talking because we used to always be on tours in Japan for Pro Wrestling Noah. We never really wrestled each other, but we were on tour to where we'd hang out, talk for the show, blah blah blah, and we had the same influences, the same ideals, the same just the same infrastructure of what we think wrestling should be, and it just clicked, man. And then we didn't have a name for a while, and then finally we settled on a name, and it just took off. So it was very organic, and we also felt that Adam put a lot of trust in us. He put a lot of trust in us, and we didn't want to let him down. So we had something to prove.
Do you think that, a lot of the old school, or whether you want to call it lapse fans, what have you, they bemoan the absence of tag team wrestling at least in the larger companies, and point to, like you touched on, the Bulldogs, the Hart Foundation, the Killer Bees, Bockwinkel, Steve, on and on and on. All those great tag teams in the past. Do you think that the modern business should have more of a focus on tag team wrestling, or is it a timepiece now?
I hope it's not a timepiece. It's a very integral part. The problem, in my opinion, is that you often see, it's a trend in wrestling companies outside of WWE, that the new thing is always going to be the popular thing, whether it be a car, a clothing style, a band, a genre of music, and of course in pro wrestling, it's all pop culture. And so when these new promotions come out, be it say TNA, AEW, Lucha Underground, when they were around, they're new, so they're fresh, so they're popular, and that momentum rides for a while. And what they then do is they kind of ride off the the coattails and credentials of established stars. So like say when TNA came out, they were bringing in a lot of guys that already made their name in Ring of Honor, so it was cool on TV to see Christopher Daniels, AJ Styles, Samoa Joe. It was really cool to see these guys, and then after a while that becomes the norm. Well, then they have to start thinking for themselves, and it's like, okay, now what are we going to do? And that's usually, as we're seeing now, it's kind of like, okay, maybe we didn't have so many ideas as we thought, and it's very redundant, what I mean? And I'm not going to place the blame, and I'm not going to be one of those guys where my day was better, because it's all relative. But I think what happens is they quickly scramble when they run out of ideas or the ratings drop or what have you. And they go, oh, you, yeah, you, and you, yeah, that's great. And they just, now it's a team, what I mean? And throw some matching gear and then give them a new entrance song. And it's like, that's not, because, when you say like it's really cool. Like when you say like the British Bulldogs, you never think of like Dynamite Kid and Davey Boy Smith as individuals. They're the British Bulldogs. You know what I mean? Of course, they wrestle singles, but like the Hart Foundation, even though Bret Hart did such a great career, you know, it was Hart Foundation and it was Jim Campbell, Neidhart, Bret Hart. You know, it was such like the team was as one unit, and that was an entity in and of itself, as opposed to trying to take two people that really should be singles wrestlers and want to be singles wrestlers, and for a mad dash scramble, they throw them together as a team. I mean, it's all my opinion, but it seems to be redundant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. A fan on social media is asking about your time working with a legend you already mentioned, Jim Cornette, when he was in ROH.
Yeah, I have nothing but good things to say about Jim. Absolutely nothing. Jim, Jim is very, again, I'm about to blow some minds. He's very polarizing because he's opinionated, and people. You have to understand professional wrestling is completely and 100% subjective. You know what I mean? It's subjective, and everyone has to be reminded they are entitled to their own opinions, whether it be the fan at home or the person you're watching on screen. Everyone's entitled to their own opinions. Okay. So, but oftentimes when people's opinions do not match other people's opinions on either side of the coin, animosity brews. And so Jim is very opinionated. He's very opinionated, and he has no problem sharing his opinion. So I respect Jim for that, because I if you don't like him, at least you know why. And he's not the person that's going to go and stab you in the back. But for us, I mean, Jim believed that wrestlers should be athletes. They should conduct themselves as athletes. And, I'm very proud of my Ring of Honor world title run, because, when I was champion, I was made champion simply for the fact that I was the best athlete on that roster. I was the best wrestler, and when someone came along who, you know, was better than me, I mean, I would have no problem passing the torch to them. So, and that's the way it was, going from like, Brian Danielson, winning, or Samoa Joe passing to Aries, and then, and so on and so forth. It really, whenever the company had the belt on the best wrestler, they was at the biggest numbers. It was never the other way around. So, it's just kind of one of those things where, again, it's all subjective in your opinion based. But for me, I agree with a lot of Jim Cornette. You know what I mean? I don't think it's necessary to, publicly state your opinion at the expense of others so much. I'm not really a social media guy for that very reason. But social media is there to be social. So there you go. He's using the platform for what it's intended for. So at least if you like him, you know why you don't. So I have nothing but respect for the guy.
Mm-hmm. And you can't argue his credentials. That's for sure.
Yeah.
In Pro Wrestling Guerrilla and several other locations, you worked Kevin Steen and El Generico.
Yeah.
Were you first of all, memories of working with them at that stage, or were you surprised that they were part of that nucleus that really revolutionized the business from making the super indie deal mainstream and acceptable, and the level of success that they both had? Did that surprise you at all?
No, surprised me, no. And and they're both just really good human beings. I can't emphasize enough, we should all be so lucky to have a father like Kevin Steen is. He's they're very good people, and they're far deserving of all the good and fortune that has come their way. So as far as being surprised at them making it on WB, well, yeah, I think everyone was, but that's just because they didn't fit the decades long WB mold and model. You know what I mean? So good for them. But I mean, yeah, it was surprising because when someone like, I don't know, John Cena got hired, well, yeah, I mean, that's what Vince McMahon likes, you know what I mean? And you see like someone like El Generico or Sami Zayn as he is now, it's kind of like, oh, that's not. But they showed like, there's I don't want to say room for everyone, because then it sounds like they're just kind of squeezing in. There's talent rises above. I'll put it to you that way. And their talent was, second to none. So, I guess yes, the answer to that question would be yes, but more so based upon WWE's prototype and model, far more so than anything about them personally, because they're great people, and fantastic performers.
Mm-hmm. You've been involved in some very high profile tournaments such as the Super 8, the Battle of Los Angeles. Where you're talking about athleticism, but where that level of athleticism was just a whole other level. How do you approach those tournaments as opposed to say a regular match when you know you're going to have to go out there and showcase that athleticism that you have several times?
Well, I was a lot younger then. No, honestly, it was so surreal because, back then when I won it in 2006, the Super 8 was a big deal. It was a big deal. And, and that was the first time I had ever, because I was supposed to, Gabe wanted me to come to Ring of Honor before that, but I made Jim Kettner a promise that I would not wrestle on the East Coast until I debuted the Super 8, and I make it good to, keep my promises. And so, I never been flown out to the East Coast, and, it's, it's Delaware, but I was like, oh my God, someone actually thinks I'm good enough for pro wrestling to fly me out. I didn't even know what I was getting paid. I was like, this is so awesome. And so we're sitting there, and I met Charlie Haas, and I was like, this is the biggest human being I have ever met. And we became friends right then. We remain friends to this day. And Jim says to me, he's like, so yeah, you enjoying it here? I'm like, man, I can't believe I'm here. And he's like, well, you're winning it. And I was like, I'm winning it. And he's like, yeah, you're one of the best, and I'm just like, and it was actually, Charlie Haas's idea, so all the credit in the world goes to that guy. What a guy. Because that's a guy that if he doesn't want you to win, you will not be winning. And I am a very good amateur wrestler, and he would kick the crap out of me. And I got to wrestle a very good friend of mine, Scott Lost, who, boy, if people have not looked up Scott Lost, I highly encourage you to do so. He has since stepped away to pursue other interests, but my God, what a phenomenal wrestler he was. And then the second round, I got to wrestle a Milano Collection AT, which is really cool. Really, really good guy. He was so scared of my pile driver. And I was like, I got you. And then Charlie Haas was like, he's like, yeah, so can you do the shooting star press? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, can you do it 2 times? Like, yeah. And he's like, can you do it 3? And I'm like, oh my God. But now I feel like, Charlie, come on, man. But back then, yeah. And then the Battle of LA, I don't know if I've ever told this until now, but I wasn't supposed to win that. I was, I can't remember who I faced up until the finals, but Super Dragon was supposed to win. He got concussed, I believe, in the semifinal match. So me and Seema had to go out there and literally just call the match on the fly, which, there was a language barrier. It was not easy at all. And, again, I'm not, a Dragon Gate style wrestler. So yeah, but that was not supposed to happen. So I ended up winning the Battle of Los Angeles and the Super 8 in the same year, which was pretty surreal. And, but the second one was supposed to happen. So fate decided.
Prius Wrestling is asking, hey Davey, how in NJPW, I don't know what that means. He contacted you for the best of the Super Juniors in 2010 and 2011. How did they? And also, how was it working with Karrion Kross, aka Killer Kross, in 2022, who seems to be on his way out of the company? Unfortunately, that's a real head scratcher for a lot of folks.
So Killer Kross, we didn't like wrestling each other at all because all we wanted to do was talk about jiu-jitsu. So, but no, he's awesome. We are cut from the same cloth. Great guy, phenomenal and legitimate wrestler, which those are unfortunately not in high quantity these days. Yeah, that guy, whoever let that guy go, should come and visit me in my medical practice for a psychiatric evaluation. And then is New Japan actually is a funny story. So I was in Pro Wrestling Noah, and all the respect in the world to Pro Wrestling Noah. But carrying over from All Japan into Pro Wrestling Noah, though those people at the top had a problem of both creating new stars and doing anything with the foreigners, Gaijin. I mean, because you had, I mean, the guys that Ring of Honor sent over there. I mean, you had Nigel McGuinness, you had Brian Danielson. It's like you had Samoa Joe, and it's like, yeah, the Briscoes, and it's like, dude, come on, guys.
Mhm.
And so I agreed to actually go. I already had a job there. You know, I already had a job, or already had a job in Ring of Honor, but I agreed to go back through their dojo system. So I became a young boy all over again. And that's a brutal, brutal process, you know, and did the whole thing. I just got married, but still agreed to stay there for like 6 months. And went there and did another tour, and just wasn't like, it just wasn't going anywhere. And and I was like, I'm done. I'm done. And then in a very spiteful move, I went to their competition, Dragon Gate, and they were very nice at Dragon Gate. That is not my style. That is not my style. I'm not saying it's worse. I'm not saying it's better. I'm just saying that ain't for me. And those who do it, they are very good at it, and God bless them. Um, so I guess like, well, I guess I'm just done going to Japan, blah, blah, blah. And we used to film Ring of Honor television when we were back on HD Net 300 years ago, and in Philadelphia at the ECW, or 2023 or 3200 arena. I can't remember which one. And I was just sitting there, and Tiger Hattori calls me, and he's like, hey, Tiger, hey man, this Tiger from New Japan, man. I'm like, is this Brian Danielson fucking with me again? And, because Brian, he was a jokester, and I'm like, no man, hey man, you died in my kid, man. You come to Japan, man. Big match, big match. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, okay, man, we get in contact soon. And by the time I got home, because I had to catch a flight back home to St. Louis, where I used to live. And when I got home, yeah, there was an email from New Japan, visas and everything. And yeah, so I don't know how they got my information. I have no idea how he contacted me. And I was flown in for just one show, which was really weird. I can't remember. It wasn't the Super Juniors, but the Super Juniors came next. And I was sicker than a dog. I was working. I got there, and the day before the tournament started, I got food poisoning.
Oh
So
boy.
I mean, like, oh, dude. So I'm literally in the first. I mean, like, can you imagine me growing up, or coming up, I should say, in wrestling, watching New Japan, idolizing Jushin Thunder Liger. I'm in the ring, and I just sucked.
Mm.
Because I was sicker than a dog, man. And then luckily the last match I was in a tag team match, and finally I got better. And then I just tore it up in that last match. So thank God for that last tag team match. That's what saved my job. And then the next year I went to the finals versus Devitt and all that. And I had a wonderful time there every time. But that first time I was like, I was laying down, I grabbed some dumbbells, and I was gonna do like chest press. And I laid down the dumbbells, and the room started spinning. I was like,
Oh.
oh God. And I started sweating. I was just coming out of, I don't get too graphic, but man, we've all had food poisoning, brother. The
Yeah.
bus rides, it was brutal. Like, Davey, son, you okay? I'm like, oh yeah, I'm okay. I didn't want to go home. You know what I mean? I'm like, this all, man. Like, talk about the worst first impression. But yeah, that sucked. So
Bad luck. You in 2011 were named. What is a really prestigious award? Wrestling Observer named you most outstanding wrestler, and that there's some good company, to say the least, in that domain. What did that recognition mean to you at that point of your career?
um to be, if you want the honest to God answer, until you told me that, I didn't even know.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I just I've always said this, and I'll say it again because it's the truth. Wrestling, wrestling has always been uh very personal to me. It's always been extremely personal. So I was raised by my grandparents, and that's the one thing, we would do together, and they were much more, into it than I was. Um, but that was like a really big childhood memory of mine, watching the old NWA stuff. And it so when they passed unexpectedly, that was kind of like a connection I had to them, because they were the only family I had. I don't have any brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles. My parents are estranged. And um for me it was like, I just kind of, wanted to make, them proud. And I always looked at it like a sport, man, and it was always, I did this, now what's next. So, not to say that I'm not very flattered, because I am, and I'm very thankful. I'm very, gratuitous, but I was never, even, where I live now, there's, people, I never tell anyone that I was a pro wrestler, and they eventually find out, but I don't have them. I have so many medals and plaques and belts, and it was, I don't know, it was very personal for me. So I just wanted to definitely help others first and foremost, but wanted to just do the best that I could, and that's what meant a lot. And have matches that I was really, really proud of. And in those years I was having, well, I mean, I guess I've always had matches I was proud of. To each their own opinion, but yeah, that meant a lot more to me than, because again, it is subjective. You know what I mean? Because I mean, there's a lot of matches I'm known for. Like, everyone loves that match me and Eddie had a best in the world, and I don't remember half of it, and we both hate it. So it's like, but again, who am I to tell someone that? It's like different kinds of music. Who's to tell someone that this album is better than this album? So I'm very thankful, but I didn't know that.
Wow. A fan wrote in a question to me to ask about your experience working. Speaking of, tag teams, one of the all-time greats, sadly, with a run cut short, and that's the Briscoes.
Yeah. 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 That one hits hard, man. Jay was a good man. I don't really think that I need to speak on their wrestling credentials, because I think they speak for themselves. He would light up every time he saw his kids. He really would. And every time we talk about him, he just light up. And he loved his wife. He's a good man, very good man. And that's a loss, not so much for wrestling, but just for humanity in general. And but I guess since the question was asked, we always loved. We were the most competitive teams you've ever even conceptualized. we always brought the best in each other, and our last match was my most favorite. We had it it was a Ring of Honor show, but it was in the OVW arena in Louisville. I'm told not to call it Louisville, so it's a Louisville. So if I offend anyone, I apologize. But yeah, I along with the rest of the world really missed you.
In 2013, you and Eddie debuted in NXT as the American Pitbulls. Can you talk about your time in that organization and the NXT system generally?
That was a no-go from the start. It just the whole thing was really weird. So I had so when I got done, so I never really had aspirations to go to WWE. Not to say that someone shouldn't or that it sucks. I'm not saying that. I didn't grow up watching that. I grew up watching NWA. The wrestling I did watch, and then my goals were to be in Ring of Honor, win the Super 8, and to go to Japan. And so I was literally finishing. So when you become a paramedic, you have to go through this thing called National Registry. Or basically, you go and they test all your skills and blah blah blah. So I'm sitting there at National Registry. I'm nervous as all get out. It's like a accumulation of 2 years of school that comes down to this one final test. And I get a call from, at the time it was Canyon Seaman, who was like their talent court. I don't know, whatever. He contacted talent. I don't know. Never even actually saw the guy in person. And there had been this new SmackDown writer that was a fan of the American Wolves, and he wanted to bring us right to SmackDown apparently, but to not cause animosity, apathy, whatever you want to call it. He wanted us to go and do a week in NXT. We're like, oh, okay. So we get down there for this tryout, and then we kind of do the warm ups, and then we're helping coach it, and it's so I have no idea. And me and Eddie both, we have no idea what's going on. We have the match, and people like to talk. The little hiccup happened in the match is called reality. That happens, and it was nobody's fault. Our opponents were fantastic guys, very wonderful people, and it just happens, and that is pro wrestling, and I am thankful that no one got hurt. So they wanted us to move to Orlando, Florida, which is where at least I think that's where NXT still is. And Eddie is he's a Boston diehard. Boston, you got yourself a lifelong fan, because he ain't moving there and I ain't moving to Orlando. Because if anyone knows me, I do not handle the heat very well. So it wasn't. It just didn't work out. They were very nice to us. They were very kind. They were awesome. You know what I mean? Like nothing, was wrong. We helped, coach a lot of the classes. We were put into Billy Gunn's advanced class, and it just was what it was, man. And they had their thing and we had our thing. And as far as I was concerned at that time, I was done with professional wrestling, just because I had done what I wanted to do, and I was beginning my new career as a firefighter and a paramedic, and I had gone through all the schooling for all that. So when that didn't go, Dave Lagana, who had been formerly a writer at Ring of Honor, was then a writer at TNA, contacted us. And he's like, well, you could still be a paramedic and a firefighter and work for TNA, because we have a reduced, touring schedule and filming schedule. So that was right up my alley. And so the whole time I was in TNA, I was a full-time firefighter paramedic. I loved it. It was perfect for me. But as far as the NXT, there's no animosity there on either side, unless someone's lying to me.
Mm-hmm. You really had some great matches in TNA. A lot of fans still talk about your matches against the Hardys and Team 3D, including one personal favorite of mine. That best of 3 series was great television. Do you have memories? Do you have memories of that whole deal?
Yeah, it was great because it was, again, 3 organic tag teams who really, they wanted to fight to show that they were still relevant and could still hang, and we wanted to fight to show that we belonged, and so those were all instinctual things, and that was never said out loud because it didn't need to be. And really credit to the Hardys and Team 3D, because they didn't have to do that for us. They didn't. And, and I liked Bubba because Bubba chopped me in the back, and I was known to have a bit of a temper. And I turned around and I was like, oh, motherfucker, it's on. And so that first match, he's chopping me and I'm just kicking him as hard. And he's freaking tall. So I'm like, oh, police kid. And he's like, yeah, kid, I like it. And I'm like, and we got along great, man. It was really good. And like that last match, a TLC match, everybody was hurt in that match. I had a broken fibula. Jeff Hardy, I don't know how he walks. Matt had a broken toe really bad though. Devon pulled his groin, and Eddie was still recovering from like a rib issue. So I think Bubba was the only healthy one in that match, and we pulled it off though, man. I mean, and somehow none of us got hurt. I don't know how that happened. I don't know. We all should have gone to church the next day, but none of us got hurt. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, excellent stuff. You competed in, and the fans are asking about it too, the famous Monsters Ball match that TNA, they produced so many classics over the years in that gimmick match. How do you feel about the hardcore stuff per se, and do you prepare for those any differently, or is that just another day in the office, so to speak?
So, well, obviously, hardcore is not my thing. I'm blowing minds here, I know, but yeah, right, yeah. Oh my God, really? Like for example, Ian Rotten booked a match between me and Necro Butcher at IWA Mid South, and I was like, dude, you should beat me with a small package. He's like, yes. So Necro Butcher beat me with a small package.
That's
and
perfect.
I was like, yeah, right. So that match not only was my not our forte at that time, but I have this thing where I will not participate in intergender matches, and I will not. You will never find a tape of me striking or doing a move or hitting a woman. I'm firmly against that. But they had a thing where you had to bump Rosemary. So I was like, okay, how can I get out of this? And I was like, well, okay, what if you're going to like blow the mist on Eddie, and I turn around and I kiss you? but really then spit the mist into my mouth, and I was pretty proud of that.
Mhm.
And then I stepped on attack, and sweet mother of Jesus, how those guys do that.
Mhm.
I, dude, I we do the thing where I do the brain buster, and we get the win. And when I set up, I go, yeah, you see me go like this. I stepped on attack, and brother,
Oh man.
yeah, that's what got me. Of all the things that could have got me, I did a toe pain to a biscuit to a bunch of barbed wire. I was fine. Getting hit with the kendo sticks, I was fine. That all that crap, but dude, that stepping on that tack hurt so damn bad. But
Mm.
I was pretty proud of that, yeah, because I really am firmly against that kind of stuff, and so I got out of that, and it worked too. It wasn't like a cheesy way out. I thought it was pretty, innovative. So I was really proud of it, and those guys, especially Abyss, my God, what a
Yeah.
mind for the business, man, and giving. Oh man, you could what a gentle giant, man. So yeah, very fond memories of that.
Mhm. Yeah. How did you feel about the split with Eddie in 2017? You know,
Hated it.
yeah, I was going to say that because you were a real franchise, drawing an attraction, all
Yeah.
that good stuff. Why was that ever um, thrown on the table, and how did it get greenlit?
Well, because TNA had a common problem of we used to call it a new writer for every season. And so when you're a new writer in a company, you want to come in and, yeah, man, I got these great ideas, and it's like, yeah, and it's just so mediocre, just past due ideas. Well, he came out from an injury and he comes back, you guys should break up. Well, how about I come back from an injury like any other, and I just rejoin the team like in every other sport, and like we didn't like it, and then they want to involve our his wife, my wife at the time, and we didn't like that, and I didn't, and at the time my wife was Angelina Love, and I did not like seeing her involved. I mean, she was tough as nails, all the credit due to her, but seeing her, and of course I trust Eddie 100% and trust his wife 100%, but we are hating each other. Seeing that, I don't like that kind of stuff. I don't like that kind of stuff. So I hated it. I don't think he was a fan of it, and it literally amounted to nothing.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That lone wolf persona that was integrated, it was a real significant character shift. With respect to that end of the creative, not the split itself, did you feel that was something that you were able to get into, so to speak?
No, no, I was done. I was done. I remember I was talking to Sanjay Dutt. We were in India, and I'm done, dude. TV wrestling is just, there's people, and it is a talent, but I openly admit it's a talent I do not desire to possess. Um, that can not willfully, but intelligently trade their athleticism and athletic ability for character development, which is necessary for TV. I get that, so I understand that. It's like when Metallica put out the Black Album. If you can go on commercial, and you got to do that kind of stuff. Because you can't play 8-minute Justice for All songs on the radio. I get it. Or can you? But you know, I just I am not able to do something I just don't believe in. And wrestling is very near and dear to me. I mean, I still compete. In wrestling tournaments today. I absolutely love it. It is my life's work. So when in the Lone Wolf, I don't even know where that came from. And then the entrance music was badass though, but I'm just like, this is not me, man. This is just I just don't like this, and and so I was I was supposed to go to like Europe or something, but they messed up the flights, and TNA wanted to send me anyways. And I was like, dude, I'm just gonna ask for my release, guys. And then they were more than happy to give it to me. So anyway, I wasn't happy, and I had a full-time job at the fire department literally the next day. So I was done.
Mm-hmm.
You know, no hard feelings, but I just, and I just, and then, you know, and that kind of, I took a few years and just really focused on school and on like, jujitsu and things like that. And then came back recharged.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Your tenure was, one of the last high water marks in that company for a while. How do you feel about their relationship with WWE now in terms of when you think back to what TNA started and represented?
Yeah.
It's the exposure a lot of folks are high on. They think it's good for TNA, but ultimately, are you of the mindset that they could, just become another NXT, or do you think it's a positive all the way around?
I mean, it shows, quite frankly, from a business standpoint, it shows the strength of WWE and it shows the desperation of TNA. Because because ultimately TNA is now their most prolific exposure is WWE, which means WWE controls it. And which is a very smart move for WWE. They're very smart businessmen. But as far as TNA, and it's something to say about the talent there, because the talent's phenomenal. It would think about if you're a new fan coming in, and you know it's WB versus TNA. Well, you're obviously watching because you're a fan of WB, which most people are, who enjoy wrestling. And now you watch TNA, and hopefully I'm dead wrong. Hopefully, if and when that split does come again, I don't see it coming, but if it does, TNA will gain new fan base and retain fan base. But the thing is it shows the power of WWE to go. I mean, anyone in TNA, WWE offers them a contract, they're gone because they can't compete. You know what I mean? Which I totally understand. And so, but TNA could very much bypass that by becoming very intelligent and using good, resources as Ring of Honor proved you can do, because Ring of Honor had less money than TNA does. But they were very intelligent. They were very intelligent and create an alternative product. Whereas now TNA has always been so desperately trying to be, in the same league as WWE. They became unexpectedly WWE light. Someone would get released from NXT or WWE, they would immediately get a push in TNA. They got popular again. They went back to WWE, and it just kind of blew my mind. Where it's like, man, you guys got a lot of talent here, man. I think Abyss in his prime could have stood up to any heavyweight there was in the world, man. The guy was pretty dang talented, and and they had a lot of talent like that, But I mean, and that's much more of a reflection of you know, the upper brass, the writers. You can't put blame on anyone, because the way a TV company works, man, there's so many hands in the pot. You really can't blame any one person. You know what I mean? Because everyone who says they're the boss. Sorry, I'm plugging my phone. It's about to die. Sorry, everyone who says they're the boss has a boss, and you have to answer to the boss. Because at the end of the day, a lot of these guys, fans need to realize, a lot of these guys, this is how they feed their families. So it's like, okay, well, I may not agree with this. I may not, like this. I may not want to do this, but I very much like to see my kids being fed and have clothes on their back. So it's like, okay, and that's where wrestling gets kind of tricky, is when you start doing it for a living. More money, more problems.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. A fan wrote in and asked about your experience working with the big man, a man who really cut a swath across the independents during that golden age that we've been talking about, Keith Lee at Evolve 93.
Yeah, Keith was yeah, dude, he was it's crazy when I consider him a big man, because he's so freaking athletic and talented. He's just one of those guys, he was dead. He chose to do wrestling. He was so athletic. He's gonna be talented at whatever he does. I mean, he could have picked up table tennis and been the best. You know what I mean? He's just one of those guys. He could play ping pong, but yeah, really talented guy, and knew how to use it and when not to use it, and very giving, which is, to me, is the most important part.
Mm-hmm. Prius is saying, fun fact to tell Davey, the longest match that you have done was a tag match, 49 minutes. Holy cow, and 18 minutes with
Yep.
Super Dragon and PWG versus Kings of Wrestling,
Yep.
Hero and Castagnoli.
Yep. Because I got kicked in the wiener.
Oh
Yep.
boy.
Yeah. Not on purpose. Not on purpose. Got kicked in the wiener, and that's why I go to the back for so long. I was like, "Uh-oh, this is bad. This is real bad." I went to the bathroom. I do a little soldier check, and on top of that, one, we could all go. We could all go. Dude, you're watching a match. You're watching four kids having fun. That's what you're watching, man. And there ain't nothing in the world and that's that authentic thing that I think that I brought to professional wrestling, because there's people more talented than me. A lot of people are bigger than me. A lot of people are stronger than me. Everything I did was authentic. I did nothing. I was Davey Richards my entire career. I didn't do anything I didn't want to do, nothing I didn't believe in. That's just the way I am. And you're watching four guys wrestle the way they loved, because they loved it, and the fans were there, and that's why PWG is Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. It should be called Pure Magic Wrestling, because that's exactly what that place is. It's pure magic.
Mm-hmm. In recent years, AEW became a phenomenon, and they drew heavily on guys with ROH pedigree.
Who would have thought?
Yeah, Danielson, just Castagnoli, just
Yeah.
to name a few. I wanted to ask you a two-part question.
Mhm.
What is your thought on Mr. Khan Tony purchasing the ROH intellectual property, and how he's presented, some of the stars, Briscoe, for example? And was that ever something on your radar to either seek a spot in ROH there or AEW?
Yeah. Yeah. I have to be very careful what I say here, because the company that prohibited that is very sue happy.
Mm-hmm.
So I once worked for a company, and it started out good, and I you know I think they thought I was on some kind of retirement tour, and I don't do that. When I come to a show, I'm there to steal the show every time. And people were quickly reminded that I am a very good wrestler, and I was doing the right thing, because I was giving back to wrestling. Anytime I'd have a great match, I would always, give my opponent all the credit, give them the attention, you know what I mean? Because it's my job to give back. And AEW wanted to bring me in to wrestle Bryan Danielson, and so whatever. That's is where that. But what I mean. I guess you could say, it's protecting their property. I get it, but it's like, I don't know, whatever. It is what it is, man. All the best to all of them. But but yeah, that would have been a lot of fun. It would still be a lot of fun. I don't know, maybe my time has passed. I don't know, but it kind of, I don't know. That's not for me to decide. But yeah, that was also, and as far as Tony Khan purchasing, it's a pretty smart move. It's a good library to own, and at the end of the day, he gave a lot of those people that maybe weren't going to be picked up by other companies jobs. You know what I mean? And I, I haven't heard the people that work there say a lot of bad things. So it's I can't say I don't watch. I never really watch a lot of TV wrestling, because I don't know. It's like, not that I'm not a fan of professional wrestling, but I did it for so long, and plus my interests are more trying to find ways to be different. So I watch a lot of really old stuff, or old catch wrestling, and blah, blah, blah. But no, I think it's a very smart move. The guy's a smart business guy, obviously. So, I give him credit for that. But, hopefully he's doing it justice, and he's doing the legacy of it proud, and building or even furthering the legacy. So I hope the best for all of them.
You talked about the American Dragon a couple times, Danielson. You had some classics with him. What are your thoughts on him still competing up until recently? He was off for a while, and then he came back. But with all, he really high level. I saw him last year live amazing work still. What,
Yeah.
what do you think about him still doing what he does? He really hasn't significantly modified his style, but with those health concerns
Yeah.
that he's had.
So truth be told, Brian is Brian's one of the greatest wrestlers of our generation, hands down. I mean, there's no question. Um, Brian is cut from a different cloth. People like myself and Brian and a lot of what made Ring of Honor so special, guys. Like, again, I'm not speaking on personal opinions, whether you love us or you hate us, Samoa Joe, Loki, Brian, I will, gratuitously put myself in that conversation, and not from a talent standpoint, because they're all better than me. But we are lifelong athletes and lifelong competitors. So, like, I don't think Brian will ever be able to put it down unless he finds another outlet, because he's an athlete. Once you're an athlete, you're always an athlete. I just watched a video of these two Soviet guys in an amateur wrestling tournament. They got to be in like their 70s. I'm gonna be like, yep, that's gonna be me. That's totally gonna be me. And because that's our life. That's what we know, and that's what invigorates us. And so it's yeah, and the crazy thing is Brian will always be good. You know what I mean? So why would he stop? You know what I mean? So hopefully he's modifying it, because he has a family and everything. And I don't want to go any deeper in that, because that is his personal business. But I think Brian is one of the last true Spartans of wrestling, man. He's one of the last real gunslingers. And I don't know, we were a different breed, for better or for worse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for better, for sure. Last live fan question that we have time for, again, about the Briscoes. Who is more insane in taking bumps, Mark or Jay? A couple of fans have asked that one.
Oh, man.
That's a hard question.
I'd have to say Mark. He was just nuts, man. I mean, good. God, they were so good. They were good at everything, literally everything. I don't know, those guys. I don't think the problem with trying to quantify or even qualify those guys, I don't think we're using the proper scales, because they were literally, and this term is thrown around so much, and it does not apply to me, but it does apply to them. They were, and Mark still is, in a league of their own. They were old school throwbacks, but they were very new school. They were technical, but they could brawl. They could talk, but it wasn't like a traditional promo style. And they were authentic. And they were so aggressive and violent in the ring, and they would get out of there, and I've seen them do it, just go and kiss their daughters and be, it's the most wonderful family, man. And they were a dichotomy in all the right ways, and I mean that with nothing but utmost and absolute respect. I just can't say enough good things about those guys. So but if I had to choose, because a fan did ask, yeah, it has to be Mark, because I don't know if there's anything Mark wouldn't do. To be honest with you, I would really be scared if we had a Mark Briscoe versus Jeff Hardy feud. It's like, all right, guys, let's go to Bull Night, put the bumper lanes on for this one.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. This I guess this is you're very qualified to answer this question. It's I'm going to hit you with a two-parter.
Sure.
First of all, noting that the business has really changed, but you've always stayed true to who you are and your philosophy. What advice would you give to folks looking to break into the industry and build the type of career that you had? That's first part, please.
Don't be afraid to give more than you get. Well, just kind of going into some things, the elephant in the room. I was accused of some very heinous and very false accusations that I never bothered to tell anyone, that the person that said those things about me, that I had domestic violence. they later redacted it and admitted they were lying. But I never even bothered coming to the media to say that. So nothing came of that. Who would have thought? It was a bitter ex-girlfriend, and she admitted in a court document that she was lying. But whatever. So I was ousted for that. And well, I ousted myself because I love pro wrestling so much. I didn't want to. I didn't feel like pro wrestling needed negative publicity, you know. And and also I'm a medical practitioner. I couldn't do that if I had domestic violence or any criminal. Anyone's bulk. It's not hard to run a background check. I have zero. I think that wrong. I do have one criminal offense on my record. 2001, I was given a $50 fine for skateboarding in a church parking lot. So I am guilty.
Oh, you need to go to the pen for that, brother.
I'm guilty as charged, but that kind of blew me away because I was like, I'm the guy that you'll never find anything intergender of me striking ever. But anyways, that's whatever. And the reason I say that is what will likely sit wrong with some people is that was pro wrestling's loss, not mine. Because I gave more than I got. I really wanted to. If you look back on my second run, go through back all the tweets and everything, I constantly put over other people. I just wanted to help. I literally because I don't need the money. I'm about to be a doctor, man. I'm good. And but I really love and wanted to give back, and that was pro wrestling's loss. But so I would say, give more than you get, man, because iron does sharpen iron, and you're only as good as the person you're in the ring with, and if you need any further proof of that, there's a guy named Ric Flair made a very good career off doing that. So that would be mine. Give more than you get.
Yeah. Awesome. Now, again, this may be difficult considering, so much that you have to be proud of. But what if you could take it down to the singular, what would you say is your most proud accomplishment in the business, be it in ring, out, and what would you like folks when they see your stuff and read about you, what would you like to be remembered by? Because you still have a tremendous amount of fans. The response to this podcast has been overwhelming.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
Thank you.
You still have a great following.
I thought everyone hated me. So
no, absolutely not. No.
So I guess the thing I'm most proud of is the American Wolves. I guess you had to objectify it. It would be the American Wolves, but the thing I'm most proud of and what I wanted to be remember was my entire career was born out of tragedy. I don't need to go into it. I had a really messed up childhood, and going to my grandparents, was like our thing that we did, you know what I mean? And it was such, that's why I won the world title, and I'm completely knocked loopy. I've been knocked out, and Jim says, Courtney I'm referring to, goes in the ring and says, you got to say something from the world title. And I just say, Grandpa, I did it. That wasn't planned, because that's what it was all about. So whenever you saw me in the ring, it was as real as it could possibly get. It was completely authentic. It was emotional. And I gave you everything I had every single night. And I wanted none of the credit for it. I just wanted to help other people, so I just, I was planning on doing it for, longer than I did. But, when those during that time, when those allegations started coming, it was like, okay, I better just step away and focus on my medical career, which is unfortunate, but, yeah, I mean, never say never, but, I ain't getting no younger, but, I am, I just want pro wrestling to be okay. So, I really, it was, you had a guy who sacrificed everything for nothing but absolute passion for the wrestling business. So,
yep, very, very old school, and that is certainly evident in your work. Now, Davey, before we let you go, do you have anything that the fans need to know about what you're up to? I know you're a very successful professional now, several fields, but in terms of wrestling, do you have anything that the fans could follow, or any contact points? I know you have several fan pages on social media, but do you have any of that stuff yourself?
No, just support your local wrestlers, follow them, support it. stay away from negativity. It's not hard to find. Find the things you love, embrace them, hold them tight, and promote them. You know, because these guys are doing that there, and it's a rough road, man. It's a rough road. So support them. Maybe, who knows, maybe a third time's a charm and I'll have a third run. I don't know. But if not, I'm very thankful for everything.
Well, I will certainly keep in touch and appreciate your time. Just a fascinating interview. I really appreciate your candor and for coming on the show today. So thank you again.
Oh, no problem. My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Well, fans, that's it for this special edition of the Cheap Heat Productions podcast with the legend Davey Richards. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time. Thank you for watching this video. Please give it a like if you enjoyed it. Be sure to follow us on all social media platforms at Cheap Heat Productions. Don't forget to hit the notification button, and you won't miss any of our upcoming interviews, recurring programs, or entertainment products. Thanks again, and keep